Hello. Today I want to talk about how to fix mistakes in your bullet journal because people ask me all the time, like, do you ever make mistakes when you're drawing? And absolutely, but I just know pretty good ways on how to cover them up. So I want to tell you guys all my tricks today, starting with the small stuff that you can mostly fix with a pen. Before you ask, the little white speck that's on my forehead is there the entire video and does not go away. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did notice it. It's pissing me off too. My number one thing is whiteout or a white gel pen. Now, as a disclaimer, I use a bullet journal with white pages, so most of these are going to be to make something white again to match the paper. But of course, if you have black pages, then you can do this with a black Sharpie, or if you have craft paper, good luck. But most people use white. So I always use a white gel pen. This is the Uniball Signo white gel pen, and it is super good for covering up any mistakes. For example, a typo, or you drew a little bit out of line. There's also the Jelly Roll white gel pen that I heard is really good. The point is you want a gel pen because it's probably going to be a little more pigmented and completely cover up any mistakes. Of course, there's always also whiteout that you can use. I have this Tombow mono correction tape that I occasionally use, but as you can see, it's literally rectangular. So if you're trying to fix big mistakes, maybe this is more helpful, but for more detailed things, I prefer having a pen. The next thing are acrylic paint pens. So I actually don't have any on me right now. I'm not a huge fan of paint in my journal. However, you can always use an acrylic paint pen because this is going to be completely opaque and pigmented to cover up any mistake. For example, Acryligraphs by Archer and Olive. I don't have any of mine right now. They're actually back at home, but those are pretty popular and quite pigmented. You can use a white one to cover up any mistakes in a journal that matches the paper, but you can also use colored ones, maybe to add a little block of color, a design, something like that. If it matches with the other colors in your spread, that can also be another idea. It doesn't have to be completely white. On the reverse side, you can also cover something completely in black. Obviously, if you have black paper, that's what you've been doing anyway, but on white paper, you can also do this and just create a big black box around it, and then you can go on top of it with white gel pen, and this makes it look super intentional. Because if you made a typo, for example, on your calendar, you wrote Sunday twice instead of Saturday and Sunday, you can just cover the entire thing in black and then write on it with white, and it looks like that was your point in the first place, and you can cover up any mistake and just try it all over again. For this, you'll also need a white gel pen or something similar. That way it'll be opaque on the black, but if you have that, then this is an easy fix. Now let's say that you're drawing a line, for example, and you got a little shaky with your hand, and say you made a mistake and the line's not completely straight anymore. This I never have a problem with because although it can be a little annoying, I just take my pen and go over it again, that same line, with a shaky thing on purpose. If you have multiple lines looking shaky on top of each other, it looks like an intentional design choice of having, multiple lines be the border instead of just one, and it covers up this little mistake by making it look artistic. On the same note, you can also maybe just make the border thicker if you made a little shake and just cover it up by making the entire line a little wider. You can also add a drop shadow on that side maybe to kind of cover up that entire section by just covering it in black or a darker color, and then it also looks more intentional. Different things to think about. Now let's talk about being off center, because there are many times where I'm writing, for example, the title of a page, goals, and then my title is just a little bit off center, and I wish I could just pick it up and drag it over to the center. So what I do if this happens is a couple things. If I'm writing in calligraphy, I might just add an extra swirl at the end to kind of extend the line a little further towards the other side of the paper to make it look more centered. Or if you're just writing whatever kind of font, you can also add a period at the end that makes it look really artistic. Instead of just being goals, it's goals, period. Or if you're like me, I always have some kind of sparkles or dots or something in the page. For example, my December theme last year, every single page not only had reindeer, but it also had clouds and sparkles everywhere. So with a theme like that, you can also just add those sparkles or dots next to the header in order to fill up that space that's a little more empty, so it makes it look like it's one complete header with sparkles on the side, and that makes it seem more centered. Now, if your words are crooked, maybe you were trying to write straight, but for some reason you couldn't stay on the dot grid and it maybe goes up a little bit. This is a problem that a lot of people have, for sure. Sometimes I like to write a little line under it, but only on the section that goes upwards, or maybe on the section that goes downwards, to emphasize the fact that it's crooked, but also to kind of add another design motif and make it look intentional. That's basically what this entire video is for. It's just making your little mistakes look intentional and artistic, even though they were literally a mistake. So if you do a little line or a swirl under it, makes it look like it's purposefully going upward and something like that. Or you can also add a little flower or art doodle under it to also kind of fill up that extra space. Things to think about. Okay, the last thing in this small category is little mistakes around the page. Let's say that you're holding your pen or something and you accidentally dabbed it on the corner of a page. Now there's a random mark that you don't know what to do with and it looks ugly. This is another instance that I would just love to cover it with a little doodle. So going back to the sparkle thing, you can always add a little sparkle, a little circle. If you have any special borders, you can just add a little design there. And even if it doesn't go with the theme, even if, for example, you're doing some really intense castle theme and then there's just random mark in the corner, draw a little heart over it. It's not gonna hurt. It doesn't look anything like the theme, but it does look like a cute little heart in the corner. It's not gonna kill anybody, and I do this all the time, honestly. Okay, so next let's move on to the more medium-sized mistakes, and this you can usually fix by covering it up with something. So let's say, for example, you're drawing a page and you have a little piece of art in the corner, like a picture of an ice cream cone, but you don't like how it looks, you think it looks ugly, and you want to fix it, but it's kind of too big to like white out or something like that. What I would say is cover it up with something. Now, this depends if you want to draw on top of whatever you're covering up with, or just leave it in like a scrapbooky, layered kind of way. So if you're wanting to draw on top of it, what I like to do is just add a piece of white paper. Now, you can add sticker paper or normal white paper, but also every time I do a Dutch door in my bullet journal, I cut off the edge of a page, and I usually just keep that extra bit that I cut off for instances like this, because it's the same color paper, it has the same dot grid, so all you have to do is cut the size that fits and glue that extra page on top of your mistake, and it looks like it's completely seamless. And since it is white, you can obviously just draw right over it. Now, other things you can use are black paper, craft paper, lined paper, graph paper. These are all a little obvious, clearly, if you have a white journal. If you had a black journal, you can cover it with black, all that. But if you have a white journal, this is more obvious. But I think it can be kind of cool to add some different textures, different colors, especially like craft paper in a white journal. Those always hit. So even if it's not necessarily fitting with your theme, you can add just some random piece of paper, maybe draw on top of it, maybe don't, and hide a little mistake that you made. Now, let's say you want to be pretty artistic and add something interesting in the corner to cover up that spot because you don't want to draw over it, you just want to cover it completely up. This is where I'd recommend stickers, washi tape, and ephemera. So stickers, obviously, you can cover it up. A lot of stickers are like transparent, so you'd have to find one that's like white backed and not transparent, but I'm sure that's not too hard to find, and you can just cover it up, add a sticker, no one even saw it was there. You can also add ephemera. This can include anything from like doilies and little like fancy papers, but you can also include just random decorative paper, maybe something with a pattern, a special color that matches your theme. This can also make something blend into the theme a little more and blend into the rest of the page and make it less noticeable that it was a mistake because it just kind of goes with the rest of the spread. You can also use washi tape because I feel like literally no matter what your theme is, washi tape can mix with anything because it just like depends on what color you're using, and then you can just put a little bit of washi tape in the corner and it looks intentional and it looks like it matches with everything. So if you had a little mistake, cover it up with a little bit of washi tape, maybe 2 pieces that have similar color palettes to the rest of the spread, and it looks like that was your intention all along. Okay, so let's talk about the large mistakes. These are ones that you can't write over, you can't cover up, you have to just start over completely. And let's be honest, I have been there myself. So the first thing you can do is just completely cover the page and start afresh. You can do this with white paper, either like cut a page from the back of the journal and completely glue it on top. I know also if you have an art or an olive journal, they do sell like refill papers, I guess you can call it. So you can literally tear off the paper and it's the exact size of the journal page for you to just paste right on top. You can also cover it with a different color. For example, black paper, craft paper, any decorative paper. Sometimes people literally do this on purpose. Even without a mistake, they'll completely put black paper, for example, on it to add some interesting contrast. So if you did this and then drew on top of the black paper, it would look like there's no mistake in the first place. You can also glue the pages together, which sounds kind of crazy and daunting and intimidating, but let's be so real, I've done this too many times to count. Basically, just put glue or tape on both sides, and instead of like folding it over like this, bring both pages to meet vertical at the top. That way you know that they perfectly match up to the end, and then you can just flip the page and nothing ever happened. If you don't want to completely glue things and make it permanent, you can also just add some scotch tape or washi tape along the edges to kind of just bind those two together, and it's like it's one page, but it can be reversed. The last thing I'd say is if, for example, you had a spread and you liked one side but you didn't like the other, so gluing it is not an option, you can always just cut out the page. However, when I say this, I would recommend paying attention to the binding. Depending on like where it is in the journal, you don't want the other page to fall off because you cut it. So if it is in a precarious situation like that, just cut it as close as you can to the binding and then maybe add a piece of washi tape or scotch tape on top to kind of heal up that binded section, and so it won't be a problem and the other page will not fall out of your journal. All right, so these are all of my tips. I hope that one of them was helpful for you, but we're not done yet because I do have some bonus preventative measures here. These are some things that help me stop myself from making mistakes. I can't make this video without actually mentioning them. And number one thing is always pencil first. I tell my sister this, and Audrey, if you're watching this, you should listen because she never pencils first. This is pretty obvious. Everyone in art class has said this since we were like 2, but penciling first is obviously better. You can erase it, you can fix any mistakes before you go in with actual ink. The next thing is rulers and stencils. So I don't have a stencil. I would love to get like a circle stencil. Those seem super helpful, but honestly, I don't mind making my circles a little shaky. It looks like it's hand-drawn, whatever. But if you're a perfectionist and you love those perfect circles, I recommend stencils all the time. I also keep with me at all times a ruler because, well, for one, the dot grids on journals usually are 1/2 centimeter, so I can just use this for measuring, but also obviously you can draw straight lines with the ruler, so it makes sure that everything is perfectly centered and straight lines, all that good stuff. The last thing I would recommend, well, I don't know if I'd recommend it, I just will bring it up, and those are erasable pens. So there are pens, for example, friction pens, where you can write with them and then wait a second. If you don't like what you did, you can just completely erase it with the other side. However, I hate these pens, I think, and I never use them because the black ink just isn't pigmented enough and it kind of skips. It's not my favorite, personally. That's only a personal decision. I don't use these pens, but I've heard many people rave about them. They love these pens, especially for like taking notes in school, because you can just erase it, but obviously it isn't ink, it's not in pencil. So this is your kind of thing. Those are also an option for you, but it's just not my personal favorite. Let me know in the comments below which one of these measures you have and or haven't used yet, and which one you're going to use next time you make a little mistake. Trust me, everyone makes mistakes. Bullet journals are literally hand-drawn most times, so they are not going to be perfect. But that is the point, and that's totally okay. Definitely subscribe below because I post bullet journaling and productivity videos every single week. You don't want to miss out when I post my next one. And with that, check out this video over here on the screen where I showed you guys my entire journal collection, bullet journals, sketchbooks, planners, notebooks, all the things in this video right here. So I'll see you over there and have the most amazing week.